This is the Enjoyer Podcast. I'm your host, James Dixon. If ever there was a man who needs no introduction, it's Charlie LeDuff. If you know me, you know Charlie. You know that Charlie won a Pulitzer Prize with the New York Times for his role in a project on how race is lived in America. You know that at the height of his game, Charlie moved back to Metro Detroit because he wanted his daughter to be raised the way he was raised, around family. Charlie's stories are some of the most innovative work you'll ever see, whether it's playing golf through the entire city of Detroit, whether it's canoeing the entire Rouge River, whether it's squatting on a squatter. Any one of those would be career stories. Charlie did all three. What you may not know is that Charlie is also one of my earliest mentors in journalism, along with the Nolan Finley, along with the John J. Miller at Hillsdale. It was my second year in the news business when I met the most talented journalist I would ever encounter. He was willing to let me sit under the learning tree and benefit from his knowledge. I can't imagine how many other young reporters, I was young once, have stories just like that. These days, Charlie is an enjoyer of Michigan and host of the No BS News Hour podcast. It's my distinct pleasure to invite Charlie LeDuff to the Enjoyer podcast. Charlie, thanks for taking the time, man. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. More than welcome.
We'll start you off on an easy one. This is our standard first question. What do you enjoy about Michigan? You came back from elsewhere. What do you enjoy about this place?
I'm enjoying this autumn. This autumn is great. It's crisp. It's warm. It's not sweltering. The afternoon light is amazing. The shadows it throws, like at the height, everything seems squat and linear, and then as the sun moves, it's tall and it's angular, and the trees take on a life. I love the trees here. I love the water here. I love the sky when it changes. But I think an apple cider, you can't beat the apple cider. It's that time of year. And my mom, and my mom's garden and my own garden. I like the fish. I like whitefish. I like trout. And I really like the people. We're the nicest, mean people you'll ever meet. You know what I mean? You walk down the street of the city and here, and you say, "How you doing?" They say, "All right, how you doing?" In New York, they're like, I say, "How you doing?" They'll say something like, "What are you, my fucking doctor?" So in Michigan, we'll put the knife in your chest. In New York, they'll put it in your back. You know what I mean? So it's got a unique culture to it. And we'll move this to politics. Nobody can understand us. Nobody can understand that in 1972, George Wallace, the segregationist from Alabama, won the Michigan primary. In 1988, Jesse Jackson won the Michigan primary. In 2008 and 12, Barack Obama won the Michigan primary. In 2016, Donald Trump won the Michigan primary. So you can fly in here all you want, right? And it's interesting to read it, echo back what they're saying about us. They're dumb. National media is dumb, soft, not experienced. And they never, ever talk to you out there. The greatest thing to enjoy about Michigan, it's people.
I find that interesting because you were talking about David Muir earlier, and there's certainly a lot of proof for that kind of model. The Jake Tapper, David Muir kind of, the talking head, the Lester Holt. But then there's this other path, and you've taken it probably better than anyone. You run on people power. You are not a regime-endorsed anything. You get information that they don't want you to have, that they try to move mountains to keep you from getting. And you get it because the people you deal with know that you have their back. Why is that the road less traveled?
Because it's easier to call it a day just taking the handout from the man, right? Like, look at the new Wayne County Jail. Told you so. I told you so. The first new Wayne County Jail, I caught that in the web of corruption, right? Where does it start? It starts with the truck drivers and the construction workers. Hey, dude, what's going on? And you get a nugget, and then you start digging, and you never hang the construction worker out. You never hang the truck driver out. You never hang the sergeant out. You get a piece of information and you protect them by It's just a lead, right? Not everything's
Right.
supposed to be based on this one source, right?
Right.
Um, but especially now when newsrooms have shrunk, and you know this very well, you got to do 2 stories a day, 3 stories a day. How is it that you can get to the bottom of anything when you're just running and trying to write a snappy headline, and you just call the police department and you get the basic layout and everything's forgotten?
You
With the
literally
new
can't.
yeah, and now what do we see with the new jail? I don't know how. Well, they had drywall. They put ceramic toilets, which are shivs, and drywall in a jail. It's so bad there. Inmates can't talk to their lawyers. It's like hours and hours and hours. You can't talk to your wives. The technology doesn't work. There's no privacy. That they started ripping the sprinkler heads out of the ceilings. How is it that the sprinkler heads are exposed in a jail? Didn't anybody see this? Right? There's no room to talk with your lawyer. There's 5 rooms for a 2,000 person facility. In the old jail, there's 30. These new jail cells are supposed to be suicide proof. So why is a guy in critical condition who just hung himself? Why are they shitting in plastic bags? Why did this thing, just for we the people, go another 100 million over budget that we were guaranteed we wouldn't have to pay?
Right.
So the developer is a hardcore Republican, supports Trump. That's Dan Gilbert. Even threw him an inaugural party, right?
Right.
And the county and city apparatuses are the Democratic machine. Everybody gets a piece of this, right? Everybody gets a contract. Everybody gets change orders. Everybody gets land and gets enriched. And then we, the people, first of all, if you're in the jail, you're presumed innocent and you can't reach your lawyer. Okay. Remember, this courthouse is the county square, the public square, right? It's Grosse Point's courthouse.
Right.
It's Brownstown's courthouse. It's Northville's courthouse. It's Detroit's courthouse. And it's in the middle of like some tumbleweed streetscape over there by the old incinerator. And already the facade, the cement facade, it's all cracked and it's caulked in, and the caulking has gaps in it. And I'm like, this is a mess. So even if the media didn't want to pick up on, I'm sitting here saying, I told you so. And I'm trying to look out for all of us. And I don't care if you like me or not. Usually if you don't, you're part of it. You're a lawyer who gets the city contracts. You're a construction firm who gets city contracts. You're part of the political machinery, right? You're connected. You're a developer. You're in real estate. You're part of the problem. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Charlie, your first Enjoyer story is about your daughter, Claudette. She's attending U of M Dearborn. You actually returned to Metro Detroit with pretty strong fanfare in 2007 after your daughter was born. You said you wanted her to be raised with your people. When you think about how things have played out with Claudette and yourself and your wife, when you think about alternate paths, what if we had lived in California this whole time? How has the Detroit experiment, for lack of a better word, been for the LeDuff family?
Well, it's not an experiment, man. You know, I mean, I grew up here.
Well, for lack
My
of a
mother
better
grew
word.
up here. My grandfather grew up here. My great-grandfather grew up here. My great-great-grandfather grew up here. My great-great-great-grandfather grew up here. My great-great-great-great-grandfather grew up here. And my very great uncle, Gabriel Aubuchon, paddled in here with Antoine Cadillac. So it's all I got, right? I'm from here. We're natives. We're from the lakes. My people were the founders of Nouvelle Quebec, Nouvelle France, right? They were the earliest European settlers here. They were the Odawans. They were the Chippewyans. My people landed on Plymouth Rock in 1630. My people landed in Spanish New Orleans in 1760. You know, we are black, we are white, we are European, we're all of it. And this is where all of that tremendous history comes together. So I don't know what else to be. You know, I like it. I want to see the world. I just told you my history, that wanderlust is in my blood. But one must grow old. One must, have roots, because a tree without roots is wood. It's just lumber laying in the forest. So here, the canopy of my family's been able to grow and flourish, and there's the good, the bad, the ugly, the victories, the sadness, but that's what it's all about. So never was an experiment, never was a question of mine. Met a young guy, he works at Channel 7 now. He was working in Philly, and I go, "You back?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm back." And I'm like, "We always come back, man." And I go, "But once you make the coasts and you get your contacts and everything, and you tell the coasts to go to hell, you're dead to the coast. So you gotta be wanting to be here. You gotta be liking to be here. And it's good to go to the coast, at least back when I was younger, because they taught you to dig all this. They taught you when you got something wrong to just square up and say so. So people have some belief in you, right?
Right.
So it's been great.
We're mutual friends. We're one of the best people in Michigan, certainly in Detroit. Probably Karen could be mayor if she wanted to. Karen Dumas is just so trusted, so beloved. She's your co-host on No BS News Hour.
Mm-hmm.
How does she help you navigate our state? I think she kind of plays the voice of reason on the podcast. But how has Karen helped you understand our home?
Well, yeah, that's the podcast, and the podcast isn't the relationship. It's part of it. It's what we do, but you're also broadcasting. So you wrote some things down and you're reading it. You know what I mean? It's not all organic.
No,
our true relationship is one of mutual respect, one of mutual trust, mutual advisory. We talk about life, we talk about relationships, we talk about what we're seeing, we talk about the children, we talk about the political landscape, we talk about our marriages. So all in all, that's you say, how does it work coming home? Well, right there, that I can call Karen Dumas a close personal friend of mine. I'm a wealthy man for that. So some self-admission, like everybody else in this political time, when I get going, I really don't need to hear you. I know what I know. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be told anything else. And that's one of the few people, because she's so honest and tied in and trusted, that I listen to, that I can get educated by, and that's when you get to be, my age, and I'm not just there trying to get information, but she can lay out to me what things mean or what things look like. She travels places that I don't go. You might want to take a look at that. So it's a kindred spirit, and it's cool being on that podcast with her, because it's just funny in real time. Like I did a lot of TV, so I know TV. She's done a lot of radio, so she knows radio.
Yes.
So sometimes they bang, which I think, I never rewatch the podcast, but I live it.
You don't?
And never know.
Wow.
I will watch the produced bits that we do, the videos or the interviews, but the rest of it, no.
How'd you get it so big?
I don't know. I will say Mark Fellauer, another co-host, the engineer, producer, he's worked with Drew Lane forever. That's a big ass podcast, right? The Drew Lane Show.
It's a fountain of knowledge there.
And Mark came to me and said, "Hey, we're going to start a network. Why don't you do a podcast?" And I go, "Man, there's in America alone, there's over 800,000 podcasts." And I'm like, why in the world, plus TV, right? So basically, what is a podcast these days? It's a bunch of people sitting around telling you, commenting on news. Like everybody's commenting on the same news, but none of the podcasts brought you the news. Like, okay, Trump, right? The assassination attempt yesterday. That was like two news organizations, right? And then none of us did any of that. We looked on Twitter and we retweeted it, right? Let's
Right.
have some people. So I thought about it for a whole year, and I looked at podcasts and I studied them, and I said, there's beyond the fact that I might have a small audience, sizable audience, whatever you would call it, from my time around the country, that I don't think it would be effective just to sit around and bullshit every week about current events. Why don't we? There are no podcasts. There are very few. Why don't we go get our own news? Right? At least
Yeah.
in our 1 hour a week, no BS news hour. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. I don't know where you get your podcasts, but and so we started doing that. We would do things like the jail, like the nursing home deaths, right?
Yes.
Like Dana Nessel going off the Turks and Caicos and somebody else paid for it. Gretchen Whitmer on the airplane. You know what I mean? We went to Texas, went over the Mexican border and smuggled ourselves back in.
Yes.
Right. So that's how we're going to do it. And I think, it really worked. Like we would do spoofs. We have Detroit Red, the comedian, playing the weatherman and
The
kind
fake
of
Mike
current
Duggan.
events. Huh? Yeah,
The
the
fake
fake
Mike
Mike
Duggan.
Duggan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fake Mike Duggan. Let It Rip. You know what I mean? He's playing James Craig, the chief of police, and I just think it resonated. One, this isn't an audience. This is your community listening, and I do appreciate when people say I don't always agree with you, but.
Right.
And I really feel great about that because God didn't make us all the same. There's 340 million people in America. There's not two sides. There's 340 million sides,
Right.
and that's what the system's all about. So if you give some information, some food for thought, and you can stand up or get up when you're knocked down, but it'll grow.
Yeah. You've had quite the evolution. I'm thinking about 4 years ago, COVID. I remember you and I viewed COVID very differently from the beginning. I never, for 1 second, believed in 15 days to stop the spread. I never believed that all 10 million people of Michigan needed to treat the same virus the same way. I believe that the more widespread the virus was, and they said it was global, the less lethal it had to be. What did you believe in March 2020? Because as I recall, you were kind of more deferential in the beginning, but then you became far and away the biggest critic of the Whitmer administration.
Well, you can remind me. My personal affectation at that time was, first of all, I never stayed home. You know what I mean? The old lockdown. I'm a reporter. I'm sorry. I'm in the squad car. I'm in the jail, but I will wear the gloves. I'll wear the mask. I'll take the clothes off at the door. I mean, I even went around and collected corpses with the corpse collector. You think about it when people die from COVID, whether it's the hospital or the nursing home, like who's coming to get the body? I'm thinking from Calcutta to Cairo to Clinton Township. Who's this nut? I went around with that nut, and he was an overweight, corpulent guy who smoked cigars.
Body collectors.
Yeah, man, I love my body collectors. It's fascinating. So, as a gesture to my fellow human, I will do what's asked of me. I'm not going to trip anybody, but I went out and collected PPE. I got it to the jails. I got it to, people were coming to me. Police departments, I mean, I would get all the N95s and stuff.
Yeah.
But it became apparent after week one, because here was day one. Oh my God. Look out the window. Remember we were all like house cats?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. It's Dave, the garbage man. Dave doesn't have a mask. Dave's wearing tattered restaurant gloves. Dave's touching the infection. Dave's going to die. Oh my God, Dave's gonna die. A week later, Dave was back. Dave wasn't dead. See, that might not be scientific, but I'm a human being who's knows what science is, and I know what common sense is. And I remember Dr. Fauci talking about herd immunity.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And so, fine. we all knew from the beginning who this affected really, the elderly, and where,
Yes.
the nursing homes. Where was the first mass death? In Washington State. Where was it? A nursing home. Then you start to watch New York and the deaths, and it's slowly coming out. Hey, these nursing home counts, what's going on with that? And I'm looking at Michigan. I'm like, we don't even have a count. It's June, and we don't have a count. Why are we the last ones, ladies and gentlemen, to have any kind of nursing home count? And then you start reading and digging, and you realize they changed the law. The law was the governor's emergency decree, law of the land from her pen. You were to count everybody, nursing homes, senior living establishments. New York counted those. Pennsylvania counted those. All of a sudden, we're playing word games, word salad. Then you're all flying off when you're telling us it's what, the UK virus? Don't go to Florida. You went to Florida, and you lied to us. You weren't that, none of it. The perch of the elite, the blob. You go to the French Laundry and I go to hell. And now I'm watching this thing, and I'm here's what was going on as well. I had some wise ass, super lib, old time copy editor trying to tell me it was September, October 2021, this vaccine had been out now, right? Is it effective? You can't get an answer from the state, can you? Okay, so we're going to dive in and we're going to go find the University of Michigan Medical Center. Pretty good one of the best in the world. Here's their data. 40% of people in the hospital with COVID had already had the shot. Right there. Okay, I had COVID. I didn't want to get the shot. Thought I had herd immunity. I waited more than 90 days and then, my daughter, Papa, just get it. Even today, now that my daughter's older, I go, well, you're the one that told me to get the vaccine. And my daughter goes, I was 13, Papa.
Right. I trusted you to make a decision.
Yeah. And I go, my daughter's very in tune with science and nutrition. She's smart, scientifically educated, you know what I mean? And I go, would you get the vaccine now? And she says, no. I go, well, interesting, and if I'm on the political spectrum here and she's over here, right, that's an interesting thing, because even if you're here with the far left, who's moved so far left, I see him coming from my right. Even if you're in the middle, you're like way over here in the right, like Bobby Kennedy's a fascist now. Like, right, what the fuck is going on?
Overnight.
So I remember being Rip Van Winkle and coming out of this and going to the airport, and I don't even remember, dude, 2022 and the mask thing still going on. I'll do it. I'm not there to bust anybody's ass, right? No one's going to tell me what to do. But if people feel this way, I make a gesture. Big deal. So sue me for trying to hold it together. But I'm at the airport, and there's the guy down in Florida. Fuck you. He ain't wearing no mask. And I'm like, dude, that's kind of a dicky thing to do. People are scared, and if you want to look at yourself as a man who leads, don't scare the people. I mean, it's, but I did think it was stupid myself. You're on the flight, right? You're in a tube, and you're allowed to pull the mask down, to eat your peanut and put it in. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing. And Fauci's the one that told me, and it turns out that it's true. The masks don't have any efficacy. They don't. Mm-hmm. They don't. It's here. The science is in. And the science is in. And they're still lying about it. This was in the Journal of the American Medical Association. This was a good study, over 500 nursing homes. And they took them in the same county, right? So it took a while to compare because you had to go nationwide. Same county. So this whole nonsense about community spread, well, it was the workers that brought it in. Right. It was the workers. It was the communities. Right. So they went to like Detroit and Livonia, same community, same county, same metroplex. And they compared the nursing homes, the ones that commingled, right? Hey, we're going to throw up a shower curtain and that's somehow going to stop COVID. Mm-hmm. Those complexes with those that would not take still COVID positive people. All things being equal, the death count was 73% higher in the commingling places. The worse the facility was rated, it got up to 500% worse. And in Whitmer's hubs, remember those?
Oh yeah.
The commingle places?
Oh yeah.
Those were rated with a 1 star from the Medicaid and Medicare center. 1 stars, 2 stars. They were garbage. And we were doing that. And she was buying studies from the University of Michigan, which those people, they need to be trashed. Dr. Lab Coat on TV, who's spewing talking points, never been in the nursing home. Who the fuck, dude, is on TV at 10 o'clock at night doing a public affairs show wearing his lab coat and a stethoscope?
Come on.
You see what this was all about?
Come on.
Yeah, dude, unbelievable.
And that, and that, that example you just gave, it strikes me, and I've made the point, before on this podcast, I make it often on Twitter. I don't think the average person gets it quite yet, but it's coming through now. The news is designed for stupid people. It's designed that you see lab coat and think doctor. It's designed that if you see red numbers on a map, that you think it's unbearably hot. It's designed for the lowest common denominator among us. It's not supposed to lift ships. It's designed to keep you as stupid as our public schools have left us. Was it always this way? You've been in the business a lot longer than I have. Was it always this way, that the news was designed for the people who don't actually read?
Let me just say, only my time in it, that I refuse to believe it, right? So I'm very satisfied with what I've done with that medium. When I walked into it from the newspaper world, I said, I'm not going to make anything I wouldn't watch. And that I don't believe the premise that they keep telling me here,
right,
in the newsroom, that people don't understand numbers. I said, it's the way that you present numbers. What you do is you say, they said it cost 10 million. It really cost 20 million. They say the project is balanced. And then you flash 20. 20 minus 10 does not equal 0. People, right?
Now I get it. Yeah.
Right. So it's just they figured out, the big they stole my car, they hijacked TV, whoever the they is. They're powerful. They figured out how to use it.
Right.
And they figured out how to co-opt it. And there's way too many people, the last ones now, the ones that parade around like they're big shots, right, on TV and the newspapers. They stink. Nobody's reading them, right? They're pretentious as shit. They miss all the time, and they simply want to be in it. But there's no audience. So go ahead and take it. Things. Who's the guy that wrote The Wire? He used to write for David Simon used to write for the Baltimore Sun. He did The Wire. He did Homicide. He's guy's great.
Oh yeah.
And he wrote just a couple of years ago, because the media, newspapers, radio, television, lost their advertising base, because that really was the job, was to deliver an audience to the advertisers. That's how you got paid. Now that you lost your advertisers and you lost your audience, journalism is out in the wild, and it's going to take 10, 15, 20 years to get its footing back. And you are seeing it, right? You will see like Matt Taibbi in Racket. You'll see Michael Schellenberger, right? You'll see Barry Weiss. And these are lefties, right? And they're doing work, right? And they're not buying it. So not all is lost. This medium, this thing we're doing, has really democratized it. And the people doing it now have to know, if the big ones, there's like about 4 levels of it. The super, the million views, the 10,000, the 1,000, and then the couple. So this thing will work itself out. I do believe it's just the Wild West right now. And it's better, in my opinion. I do X more than anything because when I was on on Facebook, I got tagged, I got shadow banned because remember I worked at the TCF in 2020 as the absentee vote captain of precinct
Yes.
123. I probably processed more absentee ballots in Michigan than anybody. And when I'm writing firsthand with my notepad, my eyes on the prize, no reporters in there. There were no 150,000 ballots came in at 4 a.m. Didn't happen. And I can tell you with my eyes, and I can tell you intellectually with the timestamps, didn't happen. I got banned. I got hit with community standards disinformation, election disinformation, when mine was the information saying that's all disinformation. They didn't care. I got hit, and you could see the audience go from like 40,000 people watching live, right, to 1.4 thousand people watched it in a week. When did that work? That worked when I started hitting Whitmer saying, I filed a lawsuit. Where's the data? This is fake, right? Here's the math. We got an auditor. We got an auditor saying you're off 43%.
Right.
And it was community standards, COVID misinformation when it was actually the information. And I was waiting for the media. I don't call it the press anymore. I was waiting for them to say, hey, there's something to this. But they couldn't admit it because they aided and abetted into this terrible governance and the death of thousands simply by wanting to be part of the gang. Getting invited to the Andrew Cuomo, Gretchen Whitmer COVID press conferences.
You have a really unique vantage point to judge the Michigan media. You've seen it in New York, LA, the Bay Area. You've seen the best of the best. You've been the best of the best. You are the best. What's wrong with the Michigan media? Where are the Pulitzers? Where are the reporters who question what these newsmakers are doing rather than explain what they're doing?
The Pulitzer to me is useless now. When the New York Times can accept numerous prizes for the Russian collusion deal, well, whatever you think of Trump, and again, I got questions for this guy, but it was false. And you got fed the line of shit. And it's obvious. Why won't you give it back? Right? In Iraq, the New York Times helped launch that war because just like the Russia hoax, they took the intelligence community's word for it. Weapons of mass destruction. I was over there with the Marines looking for the weapons of mass destruction. There weren't any. At least back then, the New York Times on the front page explained itself and apologized. We won Pulitzers for, the reaction to 9/11 and all that, but we apologize. It's not like that anymore. They've earned the distrust. What's wrong? Again, they're cranking out so much copy that it's often incorrect. And then they'll fake like it's correct, like the auto insurance reform. When the whole lead up to this thing, right, it was Duggan says this and Gilbert says this. And then on the other hand, right, the advocates for the catastrophically injured, the quadriplegic and stuff say this, and they'll give you like 2 sentences. And then it's back to Duggan again. And then the day it's signed, there's none of this could have a catastrophic effect. And then through the next year or two, there's nothing about the catastrophic effect. And then finally, when a guy I've been following and befriended, a guy named Brian, is dying in the hospital, and I go to see him.
Yeah.
The people that are advocating for Brian decide to send that out in the press, and then, whoa, look at that. Brian dies 90 minutes before the Supreme Court says this new reform was illegal, and Brian showing up everywhere. Doesn't work for me. Doesn't work. This is a get along, go along. Look what a hotshot I am. And proof's in the pudding, man. Proof's in the clicks, right? Proof's in the book sales.
But it tells me that they're not getting clicks when I see a place I worked at for 10 years. I still want to say, there's still part of me in my heart that wants to say Detroit News is the best we got in Michigan. why are you guys begging for $1 for 6 months? If you were the best and you knew we thought you were the best, you might ask a real price for your work. How could a newspaper that great, that ambitious, be turned into a beggar like this?
You don't pander to people, but you got to give them stuff they need. They're aching for it.
Stuff they need. Yes, they, not us.
We the people. We the people, right? We the people. We don't need you taking partisan sides. We don't need you letting half the story hang out. And by the way, this is true for all forms of mass communication. There's 2 rules. You know, we've had this discussion privately. I'll share it with your audience. There are 2 rules in journalism. First one, more important than ever, you got to get it right. Got to get it right. And if you don't get it right, you correct it and you move on and you endeavor to get it right. That's rule number 1. It's always got to be rule number 1. Rule number 1 cannot be supplanted by rule number 2, but there's a rule number 2 and there's no other rules after rule number 2. And rule number 2 is don't be boring. This thing we're doing here and, you know, like TikTok. I believe I'm the granddaddy of TikTok. Right?
Tell me you're not on TikTok.
I'm not on TikTok. I'm the granddaddy, though, because I took journalism and I put on a bathrobe and I go moving with a squatter. That's TikTok, baby. Right? That's how you do. All right, go ahead, kids. But while you go ahead, kids, learn this form, learn how to edit, learn how to be concise. And hopefully as you mature, you might actually go out there and do some reporting for us. Take that TikTok thing, you know, and you're going to make it. You're going to make it instead of just making a fool of yourself. That's where I see it going. When we talk about the current mass media, whether it's the radio, it's all talk radio. It's what it is. It's kind of getting old, right? Next, we'll welcome in the newspaper. Man, it's like there's no feature stories anymore. Just a good read, like what I tried to write about my daughter, you know, just a lot of us, it was first day of college. I just wanted to write that. It's my daughter's first day and she decided to commute and I'm going to go with her to make sure she doesn't get lost. And I'm acting like the hysterical, check your mirror. You know what I mean? Hey, your blind spots. We ain't got out of the driveway and I'm losing it. Right. So, and it's the same with television. There's a decree in local TV news locally here. It's not to be longer than 1 minute and 45 seconds. Why is that? Because some consultant said, we put a timer on America and they won't watch for more than 145. And I said, they won't watch for more than 145 because it's shit, right? And if you make it 3, it's just going to be 145 plus another 115 of shit. Mm-hmm. So I believe you can make them 7 minutes long. If you go on a journey, you give it a little breathing room, you stop in the middle of it, you look at your audience, you break that wall, right? Like, no, you are in the living room and I'm here, and you lean in the camera and go, are you following? Right? So when you're in the living room, it's like, what? Okay, I'm following. Okay, come with me, right? It works, and it has to be reimagined. And it's the final thing I'll say on that. I've kind of changed my mind. It's when we were looking at that Samantha Walls case and Michael Jackson Bolanos, and I'm like, this guy didn't do it, dude, right? And I'm looking at the media show up after he gets 2 to 15, not for murder, not for breaking and entering, but for lying to police. Never heard of that myself. I've been doing this 30 years. I listened to the media assembled there, and they asked all the good questions. They knew about it. And I'm like, they're working hard. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, they all do want to make it. Most of them do. They work hard. But that's not what's coming from the old people, the news directors and the producers and the editors. That thing is so hidebound, so old-fashioned, but they forget old-fashioned. We were still trying to get the story, right? Now it's clock in, clock out. Did we get the clicks? Did we get it on these 18 platforms? And people can go to the local papers or the local TV stations, go to their social media accounts. Ain't nobody even clicking those.
No.
They're just bombarding you. And it's like, somebody come in, man. Like, these young people, these reporters, They want to do it another way. They want permission to do it another way, and they're not getting it.
Why aren't they getting it?
Well, one, it's easier. Two, things blew up, and when things blew up, like there was no social media, and we weren't giving it away for free on the internet. This giving away free on the internet, this thing's like late 90s. It's not that long ago.
Right.
Never really figured out how to get an advertising base back. So those running things now were just raised in the era of, I don't know what the fuck to do, right? So they don't know what the fuck to do. And some fresh blood needs to come in there and get this thing reordered, right? And, add a girl, add a boy, somebody walking around and, it's like a locker room, getting the newsroom going and like reminding people in the newsroom that you want to come to the newsroom. You don't want to work at home. The newsroom is where the ideas go around, and like your friend's got a extra note or a piece of paper or a report like, hey, I can't get to this, or did you hear this, or I'm here. I was once told by Paul Egan, he's the Lansing writer for the Free Press. He did a story about whatever, some bullshit the press is hauled out by the administration, and it's on a place called Robinwood Street in Detroit, and this is 2010s.
Yes.
In this place, you never seen such a hellscape. They were all still standing. Everything's burned out. There's a bunch of pit bulls locked in the basement of one of these, right? An old woman was found dead in the house, and it took weeks for anybody to even know she was in there. And one house was occupied. And Paul told me about it. And he gave me the story. And the house that was occupied was 666 Robinwood.
Come on.
And it was you knock on the door and listen to one of our, fellow men, citizen, community member, this is all of ours. And just listen to the philosophy of a guy living it. And it was beautiful. And that's how it would work.
Yeah.
And that's sort of gone. And we need to get back to that.
I think the thing that keeps people from that is just the amount of time investment it takes. Like you said, when you're turning 2-3 stories a day, I did breaking news for years and years. And unfortunately, I don't think the audience understands how little time there is. And so when you go to a Mayor Duggan press conference and you write down what he says and you spell his name right, what don't you have time to do? You don't have time to check whether any of what he said at the press conference is true. And so what you publish is this degraded version of journalism where it's true that someone said it, but that's never been the standard. The standard is truth. And we're left with it's true someone said it because I just got to move on to the next thing. And so another problem I see is coverage versus news. I see so many of the reporters, the best ones, our Lansing crew, they're spending a lot of time at these Trump rallies and these Harris rallies, and those things are time sucks. That's a day gone every time you do that. And so the more you're covering, the less news you're delivering. I think that's another problem. What do you think?
Couple things is like, so you dutifully write that down. And why is that? Because as soon as that's filed, they're like, hey, listen, 2 were shot at Easter Market, give me that one. And then you got to do that one. And for any panache, any detail, right? Any truth, any counter checking has to go by the wayside. It just has to. Number 2, when you do these political events, see, I hate them. I always go to the political events because I'm going to spend, and I earned it. Like I once did Trump in the border back when he was running, and I know the border. I crossed the border with the Sinaloa cartel in the year 2000, right? And so I covered it for the Times for 10 years, and I knew a wall wouldn't work. A wall does work in urban centers like Calexico and Mexicali or Agua Prieta and Eagle Pass, those kind of places, because you push the people out. Because once you run into the city, you just mix in. You push them out or they can't drive trucks through. That's where the wall's good. Where the wall doesn't work is everywhere else, because we all now just witnessed it for the last 3.5 years. All you got to do is touch soil and go, amnestia.
Right.
right? The fence is a quarter mile from the river. So we've ceded a quarter mile of the United States to a no man's land. So
Jesus.
when I went to the Republican National debate in Simi Valley, the Reagan Library, it was amazing because our stuff was all said. We'd been to East LA, we'd been to the corner, at Sunset, at the Home Depot, all of it. And all we needed was Big Don. And all we needed for Big Don was a cameo, just so people would watch. And I get there, and it's the same everywhere now, the political events. What the media looks like, and they're these vast rooms, airplane hangar, that much media.
Yeah.
And they're watching a big screen TV, and they're down on their laptops, and you've seen this at City Hall. And every reporter is like a monkey trying to tap the secret code to get the banana chip. Those experiments? If you do the sequence monkey, you get the banana chip. And I'm like, look at this. And what are the TV people doing? Well, the cameraman, he's just sitting there. It's on auto, right? He's a union guy. It's just on auto. And the reporter, I don't have my cell. The reporter is sitting there on her cell phone, waiting for the news alert to come up from the monkey right next to her who's typing it. You've seen that, right? Mm-hmm. They will actually, you're typing it, trying to get it in, and they're trying to get your thing so they can go live and read it. And I'm like, what an echo chamber. This is awful. So I rarely go to them, but when I go to them, those of them sitting up there, they know it's coming. Because one other thing that like Fox News will complain about CNN, Dana Bash, is ask the hard questions. And I said, that's not how you do it. You already know the answer to the hard question. Come with the follow-up question. You're asking the hard question to see, are they going to lie? Are they going to tell the truth? Is it gray? Because you have such a command of the material, you hit them with it. They don't know the material.
We'll get you out of here on this one, Charlie. I know you're not a prognosticator per se, but you talk to a lot of people. You talk to a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats. Who will win in November and why?
I'm not doing that.
Do it. Do it.
No, I'm not doing that. I mean, what do I know? I tell you in a different way. Okay, I tell you what it comes down to, where I'm not believing any of the talk. Here's where it comes down to. I've been all across this great country. I'm the one in 2016 said, wouldn't believe the Detroit Free Press calling for Hillary. I've been around the country. I would wait. This could be historic, right? I wouldn't bet my house on the star of a pussy grabber video, but I'm just telling you, like, people are looking for something way beyond that, right?
Right.
Here's what I'll tell you. From 2016 to 2020, Trump gained 1% of the black vote. I expect it to be a little larger this time around. Do you?
Black males.
Okay, so that would be the black vote, right? Okay. He increased his percentage of the Hispanic vote by 10. I would expect that he's going to increase that a little more, wouldn't you?
I would.
Okay, so that's gravy. Where did Trump lose support? It wasn't from women. He lost like 3%. It came from white men. Specifically, he lost 11% of college-educated white men who had voted for him before.
Right.
11. If you do that math, that's about 2.8 million people. If they had stayed with Trump, he wins. He also lost 5% of white men without a college degree. Now, if you look what happened in 2020, when did the polls show them start leaving and why? It was when Trump caught COVID. And the media, the gang up was, this guy does not know how to manage. So the managerial class, the white college guy, said, I'm out. So that's where I'd be looking. I'm looking at the border. That's a managerial issue. I'm looking at inflation. That's a managerial issue. I'm looking at discord across the planet. That's a managerial issue. That, my friend, is where I would look, because white women with a college degree are like 2-to-1 Democrat anyway. I don't remember white women without a college degree. Maybe it's evenly split, 55-45 red. I don't think those numbers are coming around. I think that's where it's at. So if black men come around, Hispanic people come around to the red side, I'm not saying that's how I look at it. I wonder if this white male thing, if they do not come around, they stay and they're now part of the blue coalition. That's where I would watch. And I would also say this: they have it all wrong in the national media when you say Dearborn will decide. That's why Kamala Harris can't bring herself to make a coherent statement about Middle Eastern affairs. But if you look at Dearborn, it's got about 110,000 people. About 70,000 are adults of voting age. And I don't know what percentage, are citizens who can vote. Let's call it 60,000. Let's even say 70. That every adult in Dearborn could. 70. Biden won by 155. So that's not going to get you there or lose it for you. But I will tell you something else about Dearborn. It's also the home, world headquarters of the Ford Motor Company, and fully 1.1 million adults in the state of Michigan are attached to the auto industry. It's cars, baby. It's jobs, baby. It's wages, baby. That's what it is. And when you see Stellantis, after we gave you boatloads of money, you're shutting down Ram. And when you look at GM and you just laid off 700 software designers up at the tech center, we shall see. That's what I'm looking at.
Charlie, thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's fun.
So we got you on Twitter at Charlie LeDuff. We have the No BS News Hour. Where else can people find you?
I am, what do you call that? I'm on assignment for Chris Cuomo, News Nation this week.
Very cool.
So I'll be doing some dispatches about people pre-election. I'm going to be going around the country. So we're going to start here in Michigan, 8 Mile, baby. We're starting here. We're starting with those auto jobs. We're starting with our people, right? And because this is the mother of all swing states, and then we'll move around the country. So that's the things I got going on at the minute. It's more than enough. I'm writing for the Enjoyer as well. And where do you get the Enjoyer, by the way?
You get the Enjoyer at enjoyer.com. And the Enjoyer podcast, wherever podcasts are sold. Thank you, Charlie.
And what's the Twitter handle for the Enjoyer?
Mish_Enjoyer.
That's a mouthful.
So that's where people can find us. It is rather, but I'm on Down I-75 at Twitter. Thank you, Charlie. This is so good for our audience, and God bless, man.
You as well, brother. Talk to you soon.